Last year at MacDevOpsYVR in Vancouver, there was a lot of talk about the usefulness of Kanban boards. But like many things I hear at MacDevOpsYVR, it mostly went over my head. I looked up Kanban and I found it is a scheduling system for lean manufacturing created at Toyota. Well, that sounded good, but I was still out of my depth. Fortunately, one of the attendees made a Trello board for the conference, and that brought the idea home to me. Once the volume of email gets high enough, it becomes easy to get lost in a pile of trouble tickets. And I wanted my own Kanban board that would give me a graphic overview of what is going on in my consulting practice. The guys on Command Control Power used to talk a lot about Joe Saponari's status board that used a Panic software product to give him an overview of what was going on in his business. But Panic doesn't make that product anymore, and I wondered if some sort of roll your own Kanban was the solution. So I started shopping around for a Kanban solution that could help me. There are a myriad of commercial and open source alternatives out there, and I soon realized I would be spending more time and effort choosing and implementing one of them than actually using the solution. What I wanted was just a simple Kanban board with a list for each client and a card for each ticket so that I could get a graphic overview of all the tickets at all my clients and make triage decisions from it and decide which client and which issue needed attention first. I chose Trello because it was inexpensive, easy to use, and has an iPhone app, plus REST API capabilities. I wanted something that would look like this: a board that would self-populate with a trouble ticket when assistance was requested and would prune itself each time said ticket was solved. After my Kanban experiences at MacDevOpsYVR percolated in my head for about 6 months, I had an epiphany and realized I might be able to use the API skills I've learned to have Zendesk populate a Trello board list with a card when a Zendesk ticket gets created, and also remove that Trello card when the Zendesk ticket gets solved. I would do nothing except enjoy being able to view the Trello board and make triage decisions about who I needed to serve next. The Zendesk Marketplace already has a Trello integration that can create Trello cards from Zendesk tickets. That sounded great. But it turned out that all that did was install a button in Zendesk that you could click to manually create a card in Trello, like an animal. And I didn't want to have to log into Zendesk and do any manual labor. On the Trello side of things, Trello has something called a Zendesk PowerUp. But to use the PowerUp, you have to manually paste in the URL of a Zendesk ticket. Again, like an animal. And I really didn't want to do any work. I don't want to do anything in Zendesk. I don't want to do anything in Trello. I just want to have them talk to each other so that Trello will self-populate and prune itself accordingly so that whenever I open up Trello on my iPhone, I can see who and what needs attention. What I came up with is a mixture of Zendesk API triggers and Trello Butler automations, so let's take a look at the whole shebang in action. The first thing you'll notice is a Trello board with a list for each client, and here we are showing lists for 2 clients, Precursor and Marx Brothers. Now I'm going to move the board out of the way, show you my email, and below that the Zendesk unsolved tickets layout. And right now there are 0 unsolved tickets in Zendesk, so we'll create one from the Precursor trouble report form. We pick the email address of the client, the problem he is having that Apple Mail is crashing, and the client gives us a great description saying, Apple Mail is always crashing. So we're going to get an email trouble report that Apple Mail is crashing. And that email goes also into Zendesk, and the Zendesk API is going to trigger the creation of a Trello card in the Precursor list on the right. And there it is. To show you that this ticket is in Zendesk, I'll go back into the Zendesk window and reload the page, and there will be one unsolved ticket, namely Apple Mail is crashing. And that ticket corresponds to both the email and the Trello card. Now, pretend we've solved the problem and we're going to close off the ticket and the Trello card at the same time by sending an email to the client with our notes. We reply to the client and we make sure to add the Zendesk support email address. I put in a BCC field so the client doesn't get confused and send mail to Zendesk instead of to me. And then I add the Zendesk API instructions #status solved. And I tell the client how I solved the problem. A rod went askew on the treadle, and so I reinstalled the Framostat. And I click send. The client receives the notice that the problem was solved, and Zendesk also receives that notice, and a trigger runs that uses the API to delete the corresponding Trello card. And there it is. So to show you that we're on the up and up, we'll go back into Zendesk, reload the page, and see that the unsolved tickets are now back down to 0 because we solved the only remaining ticket. I hope you like my auto triage board. You can find a detailed recipe at precursor.ca/slides.